Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I will be reviewing Austen's least beloved novel, Mansfield Park. I have just finished the book and of course I want to talk to you guys about it. So let me first tell you what the story is about. We follow a very young Fanny Price, and she grows up with parents who have already many children. Now the moment comes that her parents cannot take care of her anymore financially, and so they send her to the relatives. Fanny gets adopted by the Bertram family and she gets to live at Mansfield Park, a beautiful and big estate. Fanny grows up with her two nieces and two cousins, and Sir Thomas, the owner of the estate, immediately makes clear to Fanny that she shouldn't feel equal or even superior to her nieces and cousins because she is from a lower family and a poorer family. Here's a quote from Sir Thomas. "I should wish to see them very good friends and would on no account authorize in my girls the smallest degree of arrogance towards their relation, but still they cannot be equals. Their rank, fortune, rights, and expectations will always be different. It is a point of great delicacy, and you must assist us in our endeavors to choose exactly the right line of conduct." Fanny gets emotionally abused constantly, especially by Mrs. Norris, and for the first part of the book also by Sir Thomas. The only person who is actually very kind to Fanny is Edmund, one of Sir Thomas's sons. But then when Fanny is 18 years old, the estate gets visited by the Crawfords. Henry and Mary Crawford come to visit. Mary actually wishes to marry the oldest son, Tom, and Henry is just there to flirt a little bit. He flirts with Julia and with Maria, and he doesn't really seek any commitment. He just wants to have a little fun. Mary Crawford and Henry Crawford are sister and brother, and Mary even says that anyone falling in love with Henry is going to get their hearts broken. The story mainly takes place at the estate at Mansfield Park. Now, I am familiar with Austen's writing style because this was the last book that I needed to read in order to have read all of her books. I think her writing style is rather dry, but she writes in such a real way and sometimes even a funny way. Her characters are very well thought out and smart and witty, and they really come alive from the page. There's a lot of dialogue and I always love that because I feel like it pushes the story forward. In the beginning of her books and also in Mansfield Park, I always need to kind of get used to all of the names, and so I used a family tree, and this always helps me out so much. So if you also tend to struggle with names like Miss Bertram or Mrs. Bertram or Mr. Bertram, or all these different kind of titles and names, then I strongly suggest to get yourself a family tree. You can easily find them online when the book is popular enough, or you can make one yourself, and then you can write down anything you want and anything you want to remember. I also had different colors for different characters. Fanny was orange, Thomas was green, Mrs. Norris was pink, and so on. Fanny is of course our main character, but we also get different thoughts and perspectives from other characters like Henry or Mary. Now, do the characters change along the way? I'd say that there isn't much change in this story in the characters. They don't really grow. Like Sir Thomas does grow and some other characters also, but the characters that I expected to change didn't. And that was kind of disappointing because I was hoping to see, for example, a big change in Fanny. She is very shy and she is insecure and she feels like she is worthless, and that really shines through in everything that she says and everything that she does. actually doesn't speak much, and people really need to try and make her talk and even answer questions honestly. Now, as for the pacing, I'd say it's rather slow, but it didn't feel really slow because there were constantly things going on, and I really like that you were thrown from one situation into the other and it didn't feel slow at all. I usually read multiple books at the same time because when I'm tired of one book, I can just grab another one instead of just not read. But this time I was so hooked to Mansfield Park that I didn't even start reading another one next to it, and that says a lot. I really enjoyed this book. And to be honest, I didn't really see why people were so much complaining about the main character Fanny, because people couldn't relate to her, and readers say that she's annoying and too shy and she doesn't stand up for herself, and that is all true, but she just felt so realistic, and I think a lot of women in this time period would have been like Fanny, and it gave kind of a very realistic view on the life back then. Now, about the romance. When I pick up an Austen novel, I expect there to be a lot of romance or an interesting romance story, but this time there is some drama and there are some refusals, but there never really are those heartwarming and exciting romantic moments in like in her other novels. I can definitely see why that would be very disappointed to some people or some readers, because they're used to like this very romantic vibe in her novels. I really liked Henry Crawford, and I was a bit disappointed in the evolution of his character and in the ending and everything involving Henry. I was quite disappointed because I thought he was a very interesting character. His sister states that he's a man that just likes to flirt but isn't interested in anything serious. Very interesting. Now, as for Fanny, I wasn't annoyed with her until the very last 100 pages of the, I think my edition has 600 pages. No, yes, no. My edition has 500 pages, and the last 100 pages really annoyed me. She started to really annoy me because she wasn't changing, and I was constantly waiting for Fanny to change and to pick herself up, and I thought this is gonna be such a brilliant climax, but then it took a completely different direction than I thought it would. I liked Edmund's character too, because he was very caring and very kind to Fanny. He was the only one who showed her kindness, and he was her friend, and he stuck with her, and now he falls in love with Mary Crawford, and Mary is very rude to him. In fact, Edmund tells Mary that he's going to be a clergyman, and Mary really detests clergyman and she would never marry one. And so Edmund tries to convince Mary that it is a decent profession. But Mary doesn't give in, and she says she would never marry a clergyman. She's also very rude about other things, and so I didn't really like Mary as a person. Now we are going to get into the spoiler section because I want to talk about certain things in this novel, but I am warning you, if you haven't read it, then there are going to be huge spoilers. I'm also going to talk about the end of the novel because I was just... I want to talk about it, so if you haven't read it, if you still want to read this book, then stop the video because I don't want to spoil it for you. Okay, so I have my notes here. Certain things that I want to talk about. So Maria eventually marries Mr. Rushworth. So Maria is one of the daughters of Sir Thomas and Fanny's cousin. And she gets married to a decent, rich man. And then at a ball, Fanny grabs Henry's attention. And Henry decides that he wants to marry her. So first he says to his sister, I want to seduce her. I want to seduce Fanny because she's so shy, and I just want to seduce her and make her fall in love with me just for fun. And so eventually at a ball, he falls in love with her, and Henry decides, I'm going to marry Fanny. Now, Henry proposes to Fanny and she refuses him, like in a very harsh way. Like she would never marry Henry. And Henry isn't about to give up. He just keeps pursuing her for the entire novel. So I think about halfway the novel, Henry proposes. And then from there on, the other half of the novel is just Henry trying to pursue Fanny and make her say yes to him. Now Henry is very caring and polite and gentlemanlike, and I was constantly rooting for Henry because I thought, okay, he has finally fallen in love, and after all of his flirtations, he is finally ready to settle down, and Fanny has changed him for the good. And so the entire second part of the novel, I kept hoping, come on Fanny, accept him. And everyone around her was also saying, come on Fanny, you won't get a better offer and you won't get a better man than Henry. In the meantime, Edmund falls in love with Mary Crawford, but Mary is mean to him and she is vain. But Edmund is very much in love with Mary. I didn't see why, because she was just rude, and I was thinking, come on Edmund, get yourself together because this is not the woman for you. Edmund doesn't propose, but in the end he realizes that Mary is an awful person. And then when I finally thought that Fanny would accept Henry, a scandal arises because Fanny's cousin, what's her name? Fanny's cousin, Maria, who is married to Mr. Rushworth, is seen running away with Henry. And so Henry's reputation, he wrecked the marriage, and so his reputation is gone. And Fanny is like, see, he was such a bad guy and you all tried to make me marry him, and Henry turns out to be like this kind of villain. Now in the last paragraphs or even sentences, Edmund realizes that he is in fact in love with Fanny. Now of course you can say, oh, how scandalous, a niece and cousin fallen in love, but that wasn't what bothered me at the ending. What really mostly bothered me was the fact that Fanny didn't change along the way, that Edmund had like this instant realization that kind of came out of nowhere. But I did realize why during reading this entire novel. I had a feeling like Edmund and Fanny were perfect for each other, but they couldn't be together because they're family. But then of course in the time period it is possible, because back then relatives would get married. But yeah, Fanny didn't change. The love story kind of came out of nowhere, which I kind of liked because I like to be surprised. It was such a plot twist for me. I really didn't see it coming because I didn't think it would be a possibility. But also the fact that Henry wasn't the love interest really bothered me because I wanted to see this interesting change in Henry, and I really wanted them to be together. So yeah, this fatal mistake of Henry ruining his reputation was really kind of a disappointment to me. But yeah, so those were my frustrations in the final 100 pages. But I must say, I really enjoyed this book. I was so hooked, I was so engaged. And I'd say don't be afraid to pick it up because it has the reputation of being Austen's least beloved novel, because I think it, in the beginning I thought, well, this is going to be a top 3 within my Austen novels that I've read, but I don't know, that ending made me change my mind to maybe putting it 4th place. But yeah, thank you for listening to my ramblings once again, and I will see you guys in the next video.